you're going to spend with me. So I was on a call. I attended a data workshop, a data quality workshop. You can already see the brand Informatica, which is one of the data governance tool. We will get to that point. And I saw this slide and I was like, yeah, this would be my conversation starter for tonight, which is everyone is ready for AI except our data. Everyone is talking about AI, except the data that we need for AI. The data scientists are building models. People are using ChatGPT. No one is asking the question, the result that you're getting from the AI tool, is it even is it reliable? Is it consistent? Can you really trust that data? So organizations are excited that AI is going to change or automate the process, is going to do a lot of awesome things for them. But it's still the same organization that is not thinking or asking themselves, is my data reliable enough for the models that I would build, or for the things that AI can do for us? So you can see things around responsible data for AI, transparent data for AI. There are so many things that needs to be put in place before you can actually say, oh, I'm really ready for AI. And that is where data governance comes in. Now, I was talking about common data challenges as well. If you have done data projects, you can agree with me that we deal with a lot of dirty data, data that is inconsistent, data that the quality is really poor. It's either that this data is incomplete, is outdated. You have issues around data in silos. So what does that mean? You can see a report that someone is generating from an Excel sheet that is on their laptop, and another department is generating the same or similar report from an Excel sheet that is also in their laptop. You find people updating records, and they are not updating it on the system, they are updating it on a Excel sheet that is on their laptop. So someone resigns tomorrow and you find that this data is no longer available because probably there was no proper handover. So even for some of the systems that we have within organizations, some of them they don't think about integrating the systems ahead of time. So you have a system that is standalone and there is data in it, but it's not speaking to another system. And by the time you're trying to generate a report, it is very stressful for the data team, it's very stressful for the data engineers. When they are building, data engineers are building pipelines, they go through loads of transformations before they get the right data they need to build that report. Now, there is also lack of ownership. Now, what do I mean by this? I want customer data, and I don't have anybody that can actually tell me the story about this customer data. Nobody has ownership of customer data. Nobody can say, I am very sure that our customer data is generated from this system, and I know that this is how we generate it. I can explain to you the fields. I can tell you about whatever processes that we have put in place to generate our customer data. There is no ownership. Then there is also the regulations that come. You have the GDPR as well. There is just so many regulations out there that affects how and the things that we put in place for data. But imagine that we have a system where we think of governing this data from the onset. I know you'll probably be asking yourself, so what does it mean to govern data? What does it mean to govern data? So basically, governing data involves creating policies, processes, standards that manages data and secures the data across the data lifecycle. So basically, we are putting things in place to ensure that the moment you're thinking of data, there is someone who owns the data. There is a guide on how you treat this data. There is also a policy that guides how you handle this data. We keep saying data is an asset, right? So if it's an asset, it has to be governed. Now, understanding this gives you a view of this is what I'll be doing, or these are the things I'll be exposed to in this career. We'll talk more on the career point, but I just wanted you to understand governance and data governance and how and what you expect to do in this area. So I've talked about what governance is basically. It's basically putting policies, processes, ownership in place to guide data throughout data lifecycle. And when you're talking about governance, you look at it from the operating model. So we have people. Who are the people responsible for data? Who are the people responsible for data? It's called data ownership. So there is usually an ownership structure where there are people who understand the journey of data. There are people who know that, oh, this data was created by this team. During the creation, data was created for this reason. The data is used for this. The data is stored here. All right. Such a person understands the data. This data sits within their department. They are the ones that would provide information, whatever information that you need. When you need any information to build a report, imagine that you had that person, you get data set and you have someone that you can work to say, please, I need you to help explain what this data is all about. Tell me the story about this data. Tell me the journey that this data has gone through. Are there transformations that this data has gone through? Run me through. The data ownership structure, there are so many roles under this ownership structure. You have the data stewards, you have the data domain owners, and you have a data governance council. So those ones are like the C-suite executives that are like responsible for taking key decisions on anything data, particularly now that organizations are talking about AI, right? If we're preparing our data for AI, there has to be a council sitting to discuss what are the things that we need to put in place for data. Then we have the process. So process is talking about what are the processes that we've put in place on how we guide our data. How do we create data? How do we ensure that when we are creating or bringing in a data set into this organization, that we have the right standard? How do we ensure that you only have access to what you need? Why would you access a payroll data when you don't need it? Why would you access a finance data when you don't need it, right? So process is you putting those standards, those policies in place on how data would be treated throughout its life cycle. Then you have technology. Technology enables governance. Technology helps with ensuring that throughout this journey of governance that you have an enabler, you have a technology that will power. People actually believe you don't need, there's no tool for data governance. There are so many tools out there for data governance, and we will get to that point as well. So I've been talking about life cycle, data life cycle. I will just quickly touch on that just so you can understand that. So data life cycle. So what is the life cycle of data within the organization? So the life cycle of data starts from the creation. It starts from the creation. This is the point where the data is captured. So let's use a customer that goes to create an account with a bank. Let's assume you choose to collect the form. At the point of collection, you collect the form, you fill in your details, you give your document to maybe the customer care person, and they will impute your details into the system. That is the point of creation. Now, that customer care person, when we are talking about roles, or we're talking about people, is the data creator. So the customer care person is not even the person that will use the data. The customer care person is just creating the data at that point. Now, what would you do as a data governance person at the point of creation? You are going to ensure that the customer care, whatever data that is important for your reports, the customer care person, those fields that are important for your reporting would be mandatory. So a customer care person that decides not to put gender cannot submit the form. And even for gender, you would define what gender will be. If it's going to be female in full, at the point of data creation, the option will be female in full, if that is what you want. If you want it to be M and F, that is at the point of creation. But if you do not set a standard at that creation point, the customer care person might likely put F for some, female for some. For some, they might not even put any at all. Now, that is where you introduce data quality issues. So at the point of creation, as data is getting into the organization, there are certain standards. Now, when that data is created, it is stored somewhere. That is the data storage. It's probably stored in a database, in a system, anywhere, basically. There are also processes and policies that guide the storage. Because as it's stored, but we should be talking about access as well. Who has access? Are there regulations that guide where we can store our data? I know that for, I think, some banks in Nigeria, they can't store their data. I think it was cloud or something, customer data. So there could also be regulations guiding storage as well, where your data is stored. Who has access to that? Who are we sharing the data with? There is also something around data sharing policy, data contracts. So those standards also have to come to place as a data governance person. The data usage, how are we using data? So this, we're going through the life cycle. We create the data, we store it, we use it. Then at some point, we might choose to archive. Some data sets, there's a retention policy. The data sets can be archived in 5 years, in 10 years. A retention policy guides the data. So if it's time for this data to be archived, sometimes if you're like me, that you were hustling at some point to move to the UK, I know that recently I started getting emails from certain organizations that I applied to. They were telling me that they need to delete my profile from their database. It means that there is a policy around how long a candidate's profile can be on their database. So if they don't need the data anymore, they can choose to archive or they can choose to dispose. All right. So throughout the life cycle of data, there are policies guiding, there are standards guiding how data is created. And the data governance person actually just thinks about, puts all this in place, and you find yourself engaging different stakeholders, having conversations. You're likely going to be involved in projects. Now, it's not just the data, even the systems that generate the data. You're going to be involved in software development or app development projects, because while they are thinking of creating those systems, you are telling them there's a regulation, you're telling them what kind of data would this system generate. Have we thought about the standards we need to put in place? Have we thought about the security of the data? There are so many thought process. You are likely going to be working with a checklist. You're going to send it to different project teams to let you know, oh, we are designing this, and they start using the checklist to give you view on would this system process a personal data. If it's going to process a personal data, what policies apply? Is this system going to, what integrations are available? Is it going to be integrated to cloud technology? Is it going to be, so you find yourself across multiple projects, and you also find yourself managing C-suite executives because you have to present reports on what is happening, because governance is very key for data strategy of the organization. And the data strategy ties to the business strategy of the organization. So you find that your role is so important because they rely on you to be able to implement the data strategy that the organization has. If part of the business strategy is to grow revenue by 20% or whatever, they cascade it down to even the data. How do we do it? Do we need to create more systems? Do we need to? So you find that you're going to get your own bit of that strategy. So as you're working, your work adds up to the growth of the data strategy, which adds up to the growth of the business strategy. All right. Now, there are so many frameworks that actually guides what we do within this space. I have the DAMA framework. DAMA stands for Data Management Association. I am a certified data management professional. And for you to become a certified data management professional, you will have an understanding of these 10 essential areas. So when people say governance is this, no, governance is not, because Marita has an understanding of data modeling, data storage, data security, data integration, and whatever you can see here. Because you sit at the center, you are overseeing, you are governing the activities around these different areas. And I know you can also spot data warehouse and business intelligence. So even for what the data analysts are doing, you are a key part of the team, and you are supporting what they are doing because they rely on what you provide for to make their life easier. All right, so we have a lot. I won't be covering these areas today. We can, they are very broad. Data quality is a whole lot already. Metadata, I'll touch a bit on that at some point. But these knowledge areas are so broad, but as a governance person, you should know a bit about data to be able to have conversations, because you're going to be in data meetings and you would want to add value once in a while. So when people are talking, you should be able to say, oh, based on that model, I think we should do XYZ. So we shouldn't be looking at governance as, oh, governance is not that. No. For you to actually be successful in the data governance area, you need to be grounded sort of in data. All right, so I have some key concepts I mentioned. I've explained some of this before, particularly data stewardship, which is really big. People don't understand how big data stewardship is. That is data ownership. Having a data ownership structure where you have top people that are responsible for data within their team. They are the ones that you go to have conversations about data, and they are the ones that would also even help you to have conversations with their team. And you have the governance council, which I mentioned. You also have the technical stewards. In my organization, we have governance council, we have data stewards, we have data operators. The ownership structure is so broad, it's so big, that we have quarterly trainings, we have workshop just for data owners, and it's usually really amazing. Now, I brought this here just to explain some concept. I won't go through it. I saw this on LinkedIn and I was like, nice. What a good way to explain governance. Data asset is the building. If you can see from the top, the data product owner is the landlord. Data product owner is actually a role, like people are data product owners. All right, so the data steward is a property manager. So I just talked about the data steward role here and how they are responsible for data. So that's the property manager. What can I quickly go through? The data architecture is the building architecture. And also these are some of the terminologies, and using this building to explain it really makes it easier. I will get to metadata. I know I saw metadata, property specifics. So there's just a lot of concepts within the governance and data management space that people actually do not recognize, or they don't even know. And you might actually be doing this now, but you don't know. You don't know. It's possible that before you create a table, you start thinking, what do I need for this table? What should I make? Which field should be marked as important or compulsory? What text should I use? You're already thinking governance, what structure, and you probably also write to GitHub and you do versioning and all. There's just a bit of governance that we put in place without knowing that we have the skill set already. So yeah, how do I transition into data governance? Leveraging your current role. Yes, you're probably already in an existing data role. If you're not, that's fine as well. So you can use your existing role to transition. I transitioned from a data role. I was already doing some of data governance. So when the opportunity came for me to do a project in data governance, I jumped on it. And it was pretty a bit straightforward, a bit complex as well. I had to learn some terminologies on the way, but by the time I realized why I had to govern and the challenges I was facing before I decided to start governing, then I was able to understand why the governance is really important. So yes, you're probably doing governance in your existing role. So leveraging your current role will not be bad, and you can start looking for ways to apply some of the governance practices that you have. And trust me, data governance, you need to check data governance roles. The pay is really good. Learn core data governance concepts. I just talked about the DAMA framework. DAMA has they have a big book. They call it the DAMA, what again? Can't remember, Bible, sort of. You can actually learn about these concepts. You already have developed technical and soft skills, which is also really good. And certification, the CDMP, which I mentioned. For DAMA, there are trainings on that. You can attend the DAMA training. You can also do some trainings online as well. Then seek mentorship. There are professionals available to mentor you, especially if you're already within the data space. So it means all you need is guidance on how you can apply your existing skill in the governance area. So some recommended skills. So successful career in data governance or would require both soft and technical skill. You probably will use your soft skill more than the technical skill. depending on the maturity of the organization. So some organizations have an existing data governance team. So if you're joining, they already have a roadmap, they already have projects they're working on. So if you join them, you're just going to align with whatever they are doing. But there are organizations that have nothing. They are starting from ground zero. So when they hire you, they expect that you're going to lead the way. So the skills differ. So if you are joining an organization that just wants someone to support the project, so it depends on the project that they are working on. Some have passed, they are no longer doing stakeholder management, they are doing something more technical. But some of them just want the whole awareness, data literacy conversation, data culture, building data culture. So that might require your communication, stakeholder management skill, problem solving skill, project management skill, because you will be out there having conversations, change management as well. You will be out there having conversations, running sessions, educating people on how they should treat data, how data should be managed. And because you would also be involved in projects, you would also need to be able to have conversations on what you think people should do differently. Technical skill, data literacy is not really a technical skill. Not sure why I put it here, but it's still okay. I think that the technical skill here is on data, understanding data, being able to understand the journey of data, understanding the whole data interactions, everything that happens within the data lifecycle. It's very key because your stakeholders, you have a mix. You have senior executives that don't want you to show them technical stuff. They just want you to tell them how what you discovered impacts their bottom line. Those ones are not there for you to show off. They just want you to tell them what's the risk, what is this, and just go straight to the point. But you're going to encounter data engineers, software engineers. Those ones want to use the whole technical jargons, right? And you should be able to at least understand, even if you're not flowing, should be able to at least understand. So when they are using certain terminologies, you should be able to understand that. So having an understanding of data and the data lifecycle is very important. Data modeling, the concept of data modeling is really key for you, is really key because when you create the data in an organization, the data is not just sitting on one system and it's just there. It's interacting with it's interacting with other systems. There's a lot going on, right? So you need to be able to understand data model. Right. And remember, we haven't even talked about any tool. So it's just you understanding the concept of these things. And the last one is familiarity with governance too. Now, for this one, I remember, would I say 2 years ago? Yeah. I didn't know of any governance tool, but I knew there were governance tools out there. But one of the tools that I kept hammering on that I know how to use was SQL. And I will tell you why I kept talking about it. Now, because for my project in Nigeria, I use SQL for my data quality assessment. Now, for example, how did I use SQL? I was able to write SQL queries to run through my data to identify certain things. Why is this data complete? Is it unique? So I could write SQL queries, right, for my data quality assessment. So throughout my conversations, I would always say, I have an understanding of data governance too. I've used SQL. I've used SQL, and it was okay. at the time. And secondly, there was another, the concept of metadata management. What I used at the time was Excel. I used Excel at the time to manage my metadata. But what the recruiters were interested in, do you understand the concept? I kept saying it is the same concept, and it worked. I was able to explain the concept. So I've used Excel to manage metadata years back, and I use SQL for my data quality assessment, running my business rules. So for me, I know that I'm supposed to get the rules from the business. I'm supposed to write SQL queries, run it to the data, and it will check, oh, is this incomplete? Is it there? Can I find this? How many digits is this? You know, SQL queries, if you are familiar with SQL, if you're not, of course, it's something that you should get training on. All right. So yes, familiarity with governance too. Why this might not really work for some of us is that for you to get a Collibra experience, you need to work with an organization that has Collibra, or you need to work with a Collibra partner. That's organizations that promote Collibra as a product. Informatica, yeah, Informatica training is available. You can always pay to get that one as well. All right. Yes, so I've listed the governance tools. I have Collibra here, and these are the things that these tools can do. Metadata management, data quality monitoring, data lineage, they can do much more as well. Collibra, Informatica, Purview, that's a Microsoft Purview, Alation, IBM, there is so much more, but these ones are more popular in the market. And most clients will, so most clients will either have, I keep saying clients, most organizations will either have Collibra or Informatica, just a few. Microsoft Purview is pretty new, and they don't have so much for now, aside from Azure. So you have more people using Collibra and Informatica. And the tools exposes you to some of the things that you can do within governance. So I'll give an example. I have a data set called customer. The data governance team will capture this data in Collibra as customer. They would not just capture the data as customer, they will define what customer means. What is the meaning of customer for us, not what is the dictionary meaning of customer. What is the meaning of customer for this organization? We would define it. Is the term customer used in any other department in a different way? So you might have that the marketing team will call it client and not customer. So they would also link customer to client, so that when you see customer and see client, you know that you're referring to the same thing. So these are called business terms. You're referring to the same thing. Now, when I say this business term called customer, I would see that this customer, this is the name of the data. I will also see that this data sits in Oracle database. I would also see that it doesn't just sit in Oracle database. It was created using maybe banking app or something. I'm able to have this end-to-end view of the customer data set on a tool. So it means that as a data analyst, you want to build a report and you're giving a data set. You don't understand this data. No one is telling you about the fields. And you can't build this report without knowing the definitions of these fields. What do? You log into Collibra, you search for the fields, and you can see the definitions of the field. It's also possible they gave you KPIs and they didn't give you formulas. You search for metrics in Collibra, you see all the metrics, you will see all the formulas and the definitions of the formulas of the metrics, and you won't just see just the definition of the formulas. You would also see the field names that you can use to calculate the formula. That will solve a lot of problem. That would reduce a lot of headache for people. Now you look at an ML model. ML model coming from multiple systems. You're able to look at this ML model and you're able to see the systems that these ML models are picking data from. And no matter the number of systems, right? For people that write ETLs, you're able to scan the ETL and you build a data lineage. A data lineage showing the multiple systems and the data sets that are how the systems are linked to each other. You're able to know, to see the primary keys. You're able to see the data elements. That is what those systems do. While I'm talking, let me show you this slide as well. This is Informatica. I'm showing Informatica. This is what I use now. So it's like my new, I was using Collibra before, but here, this is my new baby. So I'll just talk about Informatica. I will use this tool to explain this concept that I was talking about. So you can see that Informatica has this intelligent data management cloud powered by an AI called Claire. Well, let's move into the smaller boxes. I have data catalog. So data catalog catalogs my data, things around all the data that I have within the organization, all the data sets I have, all the systems I have, all the data elements I have, all my business terms, all my KPIs, metrics, all my AI models. It catalogs that. The information is on one system. So you're able to view your data landscape from one system. It also shows you the integrations. How are these systems integrated? How are they talking to each other? It gives you all the API. Are we getting third-party data from anywhere? Are there things that we are pulling using API? It gives you that information. Data quality, do we have rules that we are running on this data to ensure, how are we ensuring consistency? How are we ensuring that we are getting the right information? Master data management, how are we managing the master records that we have of our data set? How are we governing and ensuring privacy of our data set? How are we ensuring that we are flagging data that is sensitive? How are we ensuring that we are flagging PII data? And marketplace, how do we now show off all this that we have in the marketplace so that data users can shop for it? Thinking of what that means, if you've ever heard of data product, yes, data users can go to data marketplace just the way you go to Amazon and you buy a product on Amazon. That is how Marita will log into the data marketplace. I will see a Power BI report and I will click on it. I say, I want this Power BI report. And this Power BI report, because I requested for it, I add it to my basket. I requested for it. The request will go to the data owner or the report owner. The report owner will check my profile. Why would she want my report? You will, of course, give reasons why you want it. If the report owner is okay with you having access to that report, approved, and you can actually have access. Or you're trying to build a dashboard, and you can go on data marketplace and shop. You actually shop for data. You see the data you need. It goes through the approval process, and the data owners will approve for you to get access to it. The moment they approve, the technical steward, who is like the back-end guy that has the database admin access, can now send the data to you or give you access to that data because it has gone through the process. So you don't need to send any email. There is no need to go through all that process. And this happens just on one system. And trust me, it connects to multiple. So it connects to almost all the systems that you have within the organization. See how I'm talking? I've never asked, are people still talking? Can people still hear me? I was just flowing, but I'll continue. I think I'm enjoying myself. All right. So I think we're pretty done. Trainings are available. There's so many trainings. I've talked about Certified Data Management Professional, CDMP. There is data governance. There is also courses. I think governance is one area where there is not much info. What I say, not information. There is not much training. So the main trainings are this one that you have. Then you have the one-to-one training. So we have Coursera, Udemy, and the good thing is that there is training within the Stevens Leadership Institute as well. So that is the training within our community. There's also training within our community as well. Then you can access workshops and all. So certification, CDMP, you have one-on-one trainings, and you have the workshop. Yeah. So I think I'm done with my slides. So thank you for listening. I'm done. Do we have questions? Please.